Chapter 9: The Ottoman Empire, From Devşirme Excellence to Hereditary Mediocrity. The Ottoman Empire is the ideal long-duration case study of how an empire can decline not through sudden catastrophe but through a slow, accumulative erosion of capability. Unlike the Mongols, whose empire collapsed rapidly because their administrative system could not scale, the Ottomans built a remarkably durable structure that lasted over 6 centuries. Their longevity is often attributed to geographic advantage, military prowess, or religious cohesion. Yet the true cause lies deeper. The Ottomans mastered the art of sustaining high capability through institutional innovation, and then, gradually, but decisively, abandoned those very mechanisms. Their rise was driven by the deliberate cultivation of elite competence through systems such as the Devşirme. Their decline began when heredity, corruption, and demographic pressures degraded the quality of their bureaucratic and military institutions. It is a near-perfect demonstration of the capability, complexity curve, first mastered, then neglected, then overrun. The Ottomans began as one among many Anatolian beyliks, but what distinguished them even in the 14th century was their willingness to innovate in statecraft. Early rulers understood that durable power required institutions capable of managing, taxing, supplying, and administering a multi-ethnic empire. Their genius lay in constructing a system that extracted the most capable individuals from across society, trained them rigorously, and elevated them regardless of origin. The Devşirme functioned as an industrial pipeline for producing administrators and soldiers, breaking hereditary power and replacing it with engineered meritocracy. The Devşirme was an extraordinary innovation. Christian boys from the Balkans were conscripted, converted, educated, and placed into either the administrative service or the elite Janissary corps. This was not a crude levy. It was a talent detection system. The empire identified intelligent, disciplined youths from a massive population base and subjected them to rigorous training in languages, administration, military strategy, and court protocol. The result was a bureaucracy and officer corps selected for ability, not birth. The Janissaries became the most disciplined infantry force in Europe. Administrative graduates staffed the imperial court, treasury, and provincial governments. At its height, the Ottoman state possessed capability density rare in pre-industrial history. It maintained a literate, meritocratic bureaucratic elite capable of managing a territory spanning the Balkans, Anatolia, the Levant, North Africa, and Arabia. Provincial governors were monitored by inspectors. Tax farming was regulated. Campaigns were supported by one of the most sophisticated logistical systems of the early modern world. The classical Ottoman state was not merely powerful. It was competent. Yet embedded within this effective structure were vulnerabilities. The Devşirme system required constant discipline, cultural commitment, and political will from the ruling dynasty. It demanded sultans willing to elevate non-Turkic elites, enforce strict military standards, and continually invest in education. When these commitments weakened, corruption and stagnation followed. The first major fracture came when the Devşirme was diluted. Janissaries demanded the right to marry, own property, and induct their own sons. What had once been a celibate, meritocratic military caste became hereditary. The court transformed into a political faction resistant to reform. This shift is among the clearest examples in history of acceptance of lesser standards under internal pressure. The empire did not want to abandon discipline. It no longer had the capability to enforce it. The depth of this institutional capture is revealed in 1622, when Sultan Osman II attempted to reform the Janissaries. They mutinied, imprisoned him, and murdered him. This was not palace intrigue. It was the military elite overthrowing the state itself. The institution now controlled the empire. Performance no longer mattered. Privilege did. Simultaneously, the administrative elite shifted from merit to heredity. Sons inherited posts. Offices were purchased. Palace patronage replaced training. Bureaucracy bloated. Decision quality collapsed. Corruption spread. Tax collection became erratic. The Devşirme withered into a symbolic relic long before its formal abolition. This erosion occurred while system complexity continued rising. The Ottomans faced European powers whose organizational and technological capabilities accelerated under capitalism and scientific development. Artillery, muskets, and naval warfare required industrial training pipelines the empire could no longer support. Reform efforts, the Tanzimat, military restructuring, legal modernization, failed because capability density had already collapsed. You cannot modernize an army with incompetent officers. You cannot reform bureaucracy when mid-level administrators cannot read the new laws. Decline came in waves, reform attempts followed by renewed stagnation. But the trajectory remained clear. Capability shrank while complexity rose. Standards fell everywhere. Taxation devolved into arbitrary levies. Military training decayed. Appointments became patronage. Provincial governance fragmented. One symbolic marker of strategic decline was the Treaty of Karlowitz, 1699. For the first time, the Ottomans permanently ceded major territory, including Hungary. This was the public admission that imperial military superiority was over. External losses followed internal decay. Downstream effects multiplied. Roads and fortresses decayed. Agricultural productivity fell due to mismanaged land tenure. Fiscal solvency collapsed. Currency was debased, the classic symptom of administrative failure. The once elite bureaucratic class lacked the skills to manage credit, tariffs, or modern taxation. When European economic pressure mounted in the 19th century, the empire had no institutional capacity to respond. By the 19th century, the rot was undeniable. In 1826, Sultan Mahmud II destroyed the Janissaries in the auspicious incident, shelling their barracks and executing thousands. This was corrective surgery centuries too late. The state finally admitted what it had avoided. The institution that once powered the empire had become terminally dysfunctional. By the 20th century, the empire existed largely in name. Its administration was hollow. Its army obsolete. Provincial authority fractured. World War I merely delivered the final blow to a system that had already failed internally. The Ottoman case demonstrates the full life cycle of the capability-complexity curve. It began with institutional brilliance that manufactured elite competence. It matured into an effective imperial machine. It declined when meritocracy gave way to heredity. It collapsed when complexity exceeded capability. No empire, no matter how innovative, survives abandonment of the mechanisms that produce competence. In the next chapter, we examine Imperial China, history's longest-running institutional experiment, where the same structural laws unfold over millennia.